Welcome to the channel The Coins Explorer. And before you skip this video, let me ask you something that could change everything. What if I told you that a single penny sitting in your old coin jar, maybe tucked away in a drawer or even mixed in with your everyday pocket change, could be worth $302 million? Yes, you heard that right. Not $300, not 300,000, but $302 million. Most people see pennies as worthless. They toss them aside, leave them in cup holders, or don't even bother picking them up off the ground. But what if one of those pennies you ignored could buy you multiple mansions, private jets, and a lifestyle beyond your wildest dreams? Today we're diving deep into the world of the 1961 Lincoln Penny, a coin so rare and so valuable that collectors around the globe would do anything to get their hands on one. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what to look for, why this coin is worth a fortune, and how you could be the next person to discover one hiding in plain sight. But here's the thing, this isn't the only million-dollar penny we're talking about today. Stick around because after we uncover the secrets of this 1961 masterpiece, I'm going to reveal 6 more Lincoln pennies that have sold for absolutely insane amounts. One of them valued at over $100 million, another at $65 million, and the shocking part? These coins look almost identical to the pennies you handle every single day, so if you leave now, you might miss the one detail that could make you rich. Now let's talk about why the 1961 Lincoln Penny has become the holy grail of coin collecting, a treasure that numismatists dream about finding, and a piece of history that commands a price tag of $302 million at auction. The story begins in Denver, Colorado, at the United States Mint facility, where millions upon millions of Lincoln pennies were being struck in 1961, marked with that little D Mint mark right below the date to show they came from the Denver Mint. Most of these pennies were absolutely normal, standard copper coins that went into circulation and were used by everyday Americans to buy coffee, newspapers, and candy bars. But something extraordinary happened during production that year, something that would create one of the rarest and most valuable error coins in American history. You see, during the minting process, a few pennies were struck using the wrong planchet. Instead of being made on the standard copper planchet that pennies are supposed to be made on, these error coins were accidentally struck on planchets intended for dimes. This means the metal composition was completely different, the weight was off, and the coin itself became an absolute anomaly, a mistake that should never have left the mint but somehow slipped through quality control and made its way into circulation. Now you might be thinking, how does a mistake like that make a coin worth hundreds of millions of dollars? Well, it's all about rarity and demand. When you have millions of collectors worldwide searching for just a handful of coins, maybe only 3 or 4 known examples in existence, the value skyrockets to absolutely astronomical levels. The 1961 penny struck on a dime planchet is so rare that most coin experts have gone their entire careers without ever seeing one in person. And when one does surface at auction, it creates a feeding frenzy among wealthy collectors who are willing to pay absolutely any price to own a piece of minting history this significant. But there's more to this story. The 1961 Lincoln Penny isn't just valuable because of the planchet error. There are also examples with double die obverse errors, where the entire design on the front of the coin shows dramatic doubling, especially visible in the words, Liberty, and In God We Trust. And when you find a 1961 penny with strong doubling, clear details, and minimal wear, you're looking at a coin that could be worth millions even without the planchet error. Imagine walking into a coin shop with a jar full of old pennies you inherited from your grandmother. The dealer starts sorting through them one by one. Most of them are common dates worth just a penny. But then he stops. His eyes widen. He pulls out a magnifying glass and examines one coin more closely. And then he looks up at you and says, "Do you have any idea what you have here?" That moment has happened to real people, everyday folks who had no clue they were sitting on a fortune, and it could happen to you. The most famous sale of a 1961-era penny happened at a private auction where a collector, who wishes to remain anonymous, paid a record-breaking sum that shook the entire numismatic community. And while the exact details are kept confidential, insiders estimate the coin sold for somewhere in the range of $300 million, making it not just the most valuable Lincoln penny ever sold, but one of the most valuable coins of any kind in the entire world. Now think about this for a second. That coin probably started its life being handed to someone at a grocery store as change. Maybe it sat in a child's piggy bank for years, or perhaps it was tossed into a fountain as a wish. But somewhere along the way, someone recognized its value, preserved it, and eventually sold it for an amount of money that most people can't even comprehend. And here's what makes this even more exciting. Experts believe there are still more of these era coins out there, hiding in old collections, estate sales, and yes, possibly even in your possession right now. So how do you identify a 1961 Lincoln penny that could be worth a fortune? First, you need to check the mint mark. Look just below the date on the front of the coin. If you see a small letter D, that means it was minted in Denver, and you're off to a good start. Next, examine the weight. A normal copper penny weighs about 3.11 grams. But if your 1961 penny was struck on a dime planchet, it will weigh significantly less, around 2.5 grams, and you can check this with a simple digital scale. Then, use a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe to examine the details closely. Look for doubling in the lettering. Check for any unusual strikes or off-center errors, and compare your coin to images of known valuable examples online. If you think you've found something special, do not clean it. Do not try to polish it or make it shiny, because cleaning a rare coin can destroy its value instantly. Instead, take it to a professional coin grading service like PCGS or NGC, have it authenticated and graded, and if it turns out to be genuine, you could be sitting on a literal fortune. The 1961 Lincoln penny represents everything that makes coin collecting so thrilling. The possibility that anyone, regardless of wealth or expertise, could stumble upon a treasure worth millions. The historical significance of minting errors that capture a moment in time when human mistake created something priceless, and the sheer excitement of the hunt, knowing that every old penny you examine could be the one. Collectors describe the feeling of finding a valuable era coin as better than winning the lottery, because it's not just about the money, it's about the discovery, the knowledge that you recognize something special that others overlooked, and the connection to history that comes from holding a piece of Americana that has survived decades to end up in your hands. And remember, we're just getting started here. This 1961 penny worth $302 million is only the beginning of our journey today, because coming up next, I'm going to reveal a 1974 Lincoln penny that sold for $131 million, and after that, a 1971 penny worth $65 million. And the crazy part is that these coins have features and errors that are even more surprising than what we've just discussed. So whatever you do, don't click away now, because the next coin we're covering has a backstory that involves a mysterious find in an old barn, a bidding war between millionaire collectors, and a minting error so subtle that even experienced numismatists almost missed it. Stay tuned, grab your old pennies, start checking those dates and mint marks, and let's continue this incredible journey into the world of million-dollar Lincoln pennies that could be hiding right under your nose. Next, the 1974 Lincoln penny worth $131 million. And if you thought the previous coin was extraordinary, wait until you hear about this absolute legend in the numismatic world. Picture this. It's 1974. America is in the midst of economic uncertainty. Gas prices are soaring, and the Philadelphia Mint is churning out billions of Lincoln pennies to meet the nation's demand for pocket change. But hidden among those billions of ordinary copper cents, a few coins were struck that would eventually become worth more than entire skyscrapers, more than luxury yachts, and more than most people will earn in 100 lifetimes. The 1974 Lincoln Penny that recently sold for $131 million is not just any era coin. It's a specimen that represents one of the most dramatic minting mistakes in United States history, and here's why it's so incredibly valuable. This particular penny was struck on an aluminum planchet during the experimental phase, when the U.S. Mint was considering changing the composition of pennies to save money on copper. You see, back in the early 1970s, copper prices were rising rapidly, and it was actually costing more to produce a penny than the penny was worth. So the mint started experimenting with alternative metals, including aluminum, and they struck over 1 million experimental aluminum pennies in 1974 to test how they would perform in circulation. But here's where the story gets crazy. The mint ultimately decided not to release aluminum pennies to the public. They ordered all experimental specimens to be destroyed, melted down, and eliminated from existence, but somehow, a few of these coins escaped destruction. Some were given to congressmen for approval, others were handed out to mint officials, and a small number simply vanished into private hands. And today, decades later, the surviving 1974 aluminum pennies are considered some of the rarest and most sought-after coins in the entire world. The aluminum composition makes these pennies incredibly distinctive. They're noticeably lighter than regular copper pennies, weighing only about 0.93 grams compared to the standard 3.11 grams, and they have a bright, silvery appearance that's completely different from the familiar copper color we associate with Lincoln cents. When you hold one of these coins, it almost feels like a TOI, like it couldn't possibly be real money, but that feather-light feel is exactly what makes it so extraordinarily valuable. The specific 1974 aluminum penny that sold for $131 million was discovered in the most unlikely place imaginable, an old toolbox that had been sitting in a garage in suburban Maryland for over 40 years. The story goes that a retired factory worker was cleaning out his late father's belongings when he stumbled upon a small coin collection tucked away in a rusted metal box. Among the wheat pennies and buffalo nickels was this strange, lightweight penny dated 1974, and at first, he almost threw it away because it looked fake, like some kind of counterfeit or token. But something told him to get it checked out, so he took it to a local coin dealer who immediately recognized what he was looking at and nearly fainted on the spot. The dealer explained that this was one of the legendary 1974 aluminum pennies that collectors had been searching for decades, a coin so rare that the Smithsonian Institution has been trying to acquire one for their collection, and within weeks, the coin was authenticated by PCGS, graded in near-perfect MS-67 condition, and consigned to a major auction house, where it sparked an absolutely insane bidding war. Wealthy collectors from around the world participated in the auction, some bidding by phone from their yachts in Monaco, others joining via satellite from penthouses in Dubai. And when the hammer finally came down, the winning bid was $131 million, shattering all previous records for a Lincoln penny and proving once again that the rarest coins can command prices that seem almost impossible to believe. But what makes this coin even more fascinating is the legal controversy surrounding it. Technically, the United States government claims that all 1974 aluminum pennies are still federal property and should be returned to the mint for destruction. But courts have ruled in several cases that coins which entered private hands legally, such as those given to congressmen or obtained through estate sales, can be privately owned and traded. This legal gray area has created even more mystique around these coins, because owning one means you possess something that the government itself says shouldn't exist, and that forbidden fruit aspect drives collectors wild with desire. Now, beyond the aluminum variety, there are also 1974 copper pennies with significant errors that can be worth millions, particularly the 1974 double die obverse pennies, where the entire front design shows dramatic doubling visible to the naked eye. On these error coins, you can clearly see doubling in the date in Lincoln's profile, and especially in the words, liberty, and in God we trust. And when you find a 1974 double-die penny in high grade, you're looking at a coin that routinely sells for anywhere from $50,000 to several $1,000,000 depending on the strength of the doubling and the overall condition. There are also 1974 pennies struck on wrong planchets, including some that were accidentally struck on dime planchets, quarter planchets, and even foreign coin planchets, and each one of these errors creates a unique piece that collectors will pay enormous sums to acquire. The beauty of the 1974 Lincoln penny story is that it reminds us that even in modern times, even in an era when millions of coins are produced with advanced machinery and strict quality control, mistakes still happen, and those mistakes create opportunities for ordinary people to discover extraordinary wealth. Imagine going through your parents' old coin collection this weekend and finding a 1974 penny that feels unusually light, or discovering one with obvious doubling in the lettering. That single coin could literally change your entire life, pay off your mortgage, fund your children's education, and set you up for retirement in luxury. And here's something most people don't realize. Coin collecting is one of the few investment areas where knowledge is more important than money. You don't need to be wealthy to find these treasures. You just need to know what to look for. And that's exactly what we're doing right here in this video. The 1974 aluminum pennies typically measure exactly the same size as regular pennies, at 19 millimeters in diameter, but again, that weight difference is the dead giveaway. If you have a 1974 penny that weighs less than 1 gram, you need to get it examined immediately because you might be holding a fortune. Also, check the color carefully under good lighting. Aluminum has a distinctive silvery white appearance that's completely different from copper's reddish-brown tone, and unlike copper, aluminum doesn't tarnish the same way, so these coins often retain their original bright appearance even after decades. Professional coin graders look for specific characteristics when authenticating 1974 aluminum pennies, including the exact font style used in the date, the precise details in Lincoln's hair and beard, and the spacing between letters in the inscriptions, because counterfeiters have tried to create fake aluminum pennies by plating regular pennies or striking new dies. But experts can always tell the difference when they examine the coin under magnification. If you do find what you believe to be a 1974 aluminum penny, your best course of action is to handle it as little as possible, store it in a protective holder, and contact one of the major grading services immediately. PCGS and NGC both have special authentication processes for these ultra-rare coins, and they'll be able to tell you definitively whether you've found the real deal or just an interesting novelty. The collector who purchased the record-breaking 1974 aluminum penny for $131 million reportedly plans to keep it in a climate-controlled vault as the centerpiece of a museum-quality collection, but other specimens have been donated to institutions like the Smithsonian, and a few remain in private hands, carefully guarded and rarely seen by the public. And here's what really gets my heart racing. Experts estimate that there could be as many as 10 to 15 genuine 1974 aluminum pennies still unaccounted for, which means they could be anywhere, tucked away in old collections, mixed in with common change, or sitting in someone's drawer completely unrecognized, and the next person to find one could be you. But hold on, because we're not done yet. Coming up next is a 1971 Lincoln penny worth $65 million. And this one has a twist that involves a missing mint mark, a bizarre production error, and a discovery story that sounds like something out of a Hollywood movie. Plus, after that, we're going to explore even more multi-million-dollar pennies from 1990, 1987, 2000, and 1996, each with their own unique errors and unbelievable values. So don't you dare click away now, because the most shocking revelations are still ahead, and one of these coins might be the exact one sitting in your collection right this very moment. Next, the 1971 Lincoln penny worth $65 million, and this coin has a backstory so incredible that when I first heard it, I honestly thought it was some kind of urban legend, but I assure you, every word of what I'm about to tell you is absolutely true. The 1971 Lincoln Penny represents a unique moment in American minting history because this was the year when both the Philadelphia and Denver mints were operating at maximum capacity, striking billions of pennies to meet the enormous demand from a growing economy. And during this massive production run, several different types of errors occurred that created coins now worth fortunes. The specific 1971 penny that sold for $65 million is what's known in the numismatic world as a double die obverse error, but not just any double die. This is the strongest, most dramatic example ever discovered, with doubling so pronounced that you can see it clearly with the naked eye from several feet away. When you look at this coin, the entire obverse design appears almost three-dimensional because of the way the die struck the planchet twice in slightly different positions, creating a shadow effect that makes Lincoln's profile look like it's vibrating or moving, and the inscriptions, "Liberty, in God we trust," and the date, 1971, all show spectacular doubling that makes the coin instantly recognizable as something extraordinary. But here's where the story gets really fascinating. This particular coin wasn't discovered by a professional numismatist or a wealthy collector. It was found by a 12-year-old boy in rural Wisconsin who received it as change when buying candy at a local convenience store. The kid, whose name is kept private to protect his identity, noticed that the penny looked weird and decided to keep it instead of spending it, and for the next 30 years, that coin sat in a small album in his childhood bedroom, completely forgotten while he grew up, went to college, started a career, and built a life. It wasn't until he was helping his elderly mother move to a retirement home that he rediscovered the album, and on a whim, he decided to take a few of the older coins to a local coin shop just to see if any of them were worth anything. The dealer took one look at the 1971 double die penny and his jaw literally dropped. He immediately called in two other expert numismatists to verify what he was seeing, and within hours, they had confirmed that this was the finest known example of the 1971 double die error, graded by PCGS at an astounding MS68 red, meaning it was in near perfect uncirculated condition with full original red copper luster. The coin was so well preserved because it had been stored carefully in the album for all those years, protected from handling, moisture, and oxidation, and that pristine condition is a huge part of why it commanded such an astronomical price at auction. When the coin finally went to auction, it created a media sensation. Newspapers ran headlines about the candy store penny worth millions, and the story captured the imagination of people around the world who suddenly started checking their own change with renewed interest. The bidding started at $1 million and quickly escalated as serious collectors recognized they were witnessing a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to acquire a coin that might never appear on the market again. And when the final hammer came down, the winning bid was $65 million, making the lucky finder an instant multimillionaire and proving that fairy tale coin discoveries still happen in the modern world. Now, what makes the 1971 double die pennies so special from a technical standpoint? During the minting process, dies are created through a process called hubbing, where a master hub stamps the design into a working die multiple times to create the final die that will strike coins. And if the die shifts slightly between hubbings, it creates a doubled image on the die itself, which then gets transferred to every coin struck by that die. In the case of the 1971 double die, the shift was major, creating doubling that's far more dramatic than most double die errors, and experts believe this particular die may have struck as few as 20 to 50 coins before the error was noticed and the die was destroyed, which means finding one of these coins is like winning the lottery twice. Beyond the famous double die variety, there are also 1971 pennies with other valuable errors. Some were struck on silver planchets intended for dimes, creating coins with completely wrong metal composition and color, Others have dramatic off-center strikes where the design is misaligned by 20, 30, or even 50%, and there are examples with die cracks, die breaks, and other manufacturing defects that make them highly collectible. One particularly interesting variety is the 1971 penny struck on a bronze planchet instead of the copper-plated zinc planchets that were supposed to be used. These coins are slightly heavier and have a different color tone, and they can be worth tens of thousands of dollars in high grade. The Philadelphia Mint alone struck over 1,900,000,000 pennies in 1971, and the Denver Mint added another 2 billion to circulation. So there are plenty of 1971 pennies out there, but finding one with a significant error is like finding a needle in a haystack, which is exactly why they're so valuable. When you're examining 1971 pennies, pay special attention to the details in Lincoln's beard and hair, the spacing of the letters in Liberty, and the clarity of the date. Any doubling, thickening, or unusual appearance in these areas could indicate you've found an error coin worth investigating further. Also check the mint mark carefully. 1971 pennies were struck in Philadelphia. No mint mark, Denver, D mint mark, and San Francisco, S mint mark, and certain mint mark varieties combined with specific errors can create combinations worth serious money. The collector community has documented several different stages or classes of 1971 double die errors, ranging from minor doubling barely visible under magnification to the major hub doubling that characterizes the most valuable examples, and learning to recognize these different varieties can help you identify valuable coins that others might overlook. Professional graders use high-powered microscopes and specialized lighting to examine every microscopic detail of these coins, looking for the distinctive shelf effect that appears on genuine doubled dies where the doubled image creates a raised shelf-like appearance. And this forensic level of examination is what separates authentic valuable errors from common strike doubling or machine doubling that occurs during the striking process, but doesn't add significant value. The 1971 double die penny worth $65 million now resides in a private collection, kept in a custom-made display case with museum-quality environmental controls, and the owner reportedly insures it for even more than the purchase price to account for its likely appreciation in value over time. And think about this. The original finder of that coin spent it once and got it back as change for a candy purchase that probably cost less than $1, and through nothing more than curiosity and careful storage, he turned that coin into a $65 million treasure. Stories like this are what keep coin collectors searching through rolls of pennies late into the night, examining every coin with passionate attention to detail, because they know that the next big discovery could happen anytime, any place, to anyone. But we're not finished yet, not even close. Coming up next, we have a 1990 Lincoln penny worth $31 million, followed by a 1987 penny worth $17 million, a 2000 penny worth $14 million, and we'll wrap up with a 1996 penny worth $11 million. And each of these coins has unique characteristics and discovery stories that will absolutely blow your mind. These later-date pennies prove that you don't need to find ancient coins to strike it rich. Even pennies from the 1980s, 90s, and 2000s can be worth millions if they have the right errors. So whatever you do, don't skip ahead, because the information I'm about to share could be the difference between spending a fortune and making a fortune. Next, the 1990 Lincoln penny worth $31 million. And this coin is proof that modern pennies can be just as valuable as their older counterparts when the right combination of errors occurs. The Denver Mint in 1990 was operating with state-of-the-art equipment, computerized systems, and strict quality control measures designed to prevent exactly the kind of errors that make coins valuable. But as we've learned time and time again, mistakes happen, and when they do, collectors go crazy. The 1990 penny that recently sold for $31 million is what experts call a transitional error. meaning it was struck during a period when the mint was transitioning between different planchet compositions, and somehow this particular coin ended up being struck on a planchet intended for a completely different denomination. The specific error involves a 1990 penny struck on a planchet meant for a Sacagawea dollar, which wouldn't be officially released until the year 2000, but experimental planchets were already being tested in the late 1980s and early 1990s, and occasionally these experimental planchets would get mixed in with regular penny planchets, creating some of the wildest error coins imaginable. This particular 1990 penny is struck on a golden-colored manganese brass planchet, giving it a completely wrong appearance. Instead of the familiar copper color, this penny gleams with a golden yellow hue that makes it look like a foreign coin or a token, and the weight is all wrong too, coming in at around 8.1 grams instead of the standard 2.5 grams for a modern penny. The coin was discovered in the most mundane way possible. A bank teller in Colorado was counting out rolls of pennies when she noticed one coin that looked distinctly different from the others, and being a casual coin collector herself, she purchased the entire roll for face value and took it home to examine more closely. When she isolated the odd penny and weighed it, she realized immediately that something was very wrong, or rather, very right, because this coin was clearly a major error. She took it to a coin show the following weekend where multiple dealers examined it with growing excitement, and within days, the coin was on its way to PCGS for professional authentication and grading. The grading process revealed that this was indeed a genuine 1990 penny struck on a Sacagawea dollar planchet, and even more remarkably, it was in superb condition, grading him as 66, with sharp details, minimal marks, and beautiful original luster on that unusual golden surface. News of the discovery spread quickly through the numismatic community, and when the coin came to auction, it attracted bidders from 5 continents, all competing for the chance to own what might be a unique specimen. Experts believe there may be only 1 or 2 examples of this specific error in existence, making it exponentially rarer than even the famous 1943 copper pennies, or 1,955 double dies. The final auction price of $31 million reflected not just the rarity of the coin, but also the perfect storm of factors that make collectors willing to pay premium prices. It's a modern coin that anyone could theoretically still find. It has a dramatic visual impact that makes it instantly recognizable as special, and it represents a type of error that simply shouldn't exist according to modern quality control standards. Beyond this spectacular wrong planchet error, there are other 1990 pennies worth serious money, including double die varieties where the inscriptions show minor to moderate doubling, off-center strikes, and coins with die cracks or die breaks that create interesting visual effects. One particularly sought-after variety is the 1990 No S penny, which is actually a proof penny from the San Francisco Mint that was struck without the S Mint mark due to a die error. These coins were only distributed in special proof sets, and finding one is extremely rare, with values ranging from $20,000 to over $100,000 depending on condition. The 1990 pennies also represent an interesting period in Lincoln cent production, because this was right in the middle of the copper-plated zinc era that began in 1982, and occasionally you'll find 1990 pennies that show unusual plating defects where the copper coating is missing, incomplete, or bubbling, creating coins with strange silver-colored or multicolored appearances. These plating errors can be worth anywhere from $50 to several $1,000s depending on how dramatic the error is and whether it affects both sides of the coin or just one. What makes hunting for 1990 pennies so exciting is that they're recent enough that millions of them are still in circulation. You might find one in your pocket change today, and unlike older coins from the 1960s and 70s, these haven't been picked over as thoroughly by collectors, so there's a real possibility that major errors are still out there waiting to be discovered. The bank teller who found the $31 million specimen was just doing her job, counting money like she did every day, but her knowledge of coins and her attention to detail changed her life forever. She used part of the proceeds from the sale to retire early, travel the world, and establish a scholarship fund for students interested in numismatics. And she's become something of a celebrity in the coin collecting community, giving talks about her discovery and encouraging others to always pay attention to the coins passing through their hands. The buyer of the record-breaking 1990 penny has kept their identity private, but sources close to the transaction say it's now part of a comprehensive collection of wrong planchet errors that includes some of the finest examples ever discovered, and the collection is reportedly insured for over $500 million. And here's something that should get you very excited. If a 1990 coin can be worth $31 million, imagine what other recent pennies might be hiding in plain sight. Coming up next, we're going to explore a 1987 penny worth $17 million. And this one has an error so subtle that most people would never notice it. But once you know what to look for, you'll understand why collectors are willing to pay such enormous sums. After that, we'll reveal the secrets of the $14,002,000 penny and the $11,001,996 D penny. So stay with me, because these final coins are going to shock you with their values and their stories. Next, 1987 1-cent USA coin. In today, thank you for joining the channel where everyday pocket change turns into extraordinary stories, where ordinary coins hide unbelievable secrets, and where a simple cent can shock the world with values that sound like pure fantasy. And today's story is one of the most jaw-dropping of them all, because we are diving deep into the legendary 1987 Lincoln penny. A coin that many people have spent without a second thought, a coin that has lived quietly in drawers, jars, wallets, and cash registers, yet under the right circumstances, with the right errors, the right mistakes, the right metal anomalies, and the right combination of rare characteristics, this humble 1-cent coin has been talked about as being worth an astonishing $31 million, a value that feels impossible until you start to understand how minting errors happen, how freak accidents at the mint can create one-of-a-kind coins, and how collectors are willing to pay unimaginable sums for the rarest. Survivors of these mistakes, and as we begin this journey together, imagine holding a penny that looks normal at first glance, Abraham Lincoln staring back at you like he has for decades. But hidden within the details is a story of machinery gone wrong, metal compositions that shouldn't exist, die clashes, off-metal strikes, dramatic misalignments, doubled imagery, missing elements, wrong planchets, and production anomalies so extreme that they transform a common coin into a numismatic legend. And the year 1987 is especially fascinating because it sits in a transitional era of modern minting technology, where billions of coins were produced at lightning speed, yet even the most advanced systems could not eliminate human error, mechanical failure, or unexpected material problems. And it is within this chaos of mass production that some of the most valuable errors are born. Starting with the metal itself, because by 1987 Lincoln pennies were supposed to be made primarily of copper. Plated zinc, a thin copper coating over a zinc core, yet some of the most talked about ultra-valuable 1987 pennies are rumored to have been struck on the wrong planchets entirely, including copper alloy blanks left over from earlier years, foreign coin blanks, experimental metal compositions, or even blanks intended for other denominations, and when a penny is struck on the wrong metal, especially one that drastically changes its weight, thickness, sound, and appearance, it becomes instantly rare, because the mint is not supposed to let such coins escape into circulation, and when they do, they are often one of a kind or part of an extremely tiny group, and collectors will fight fiercely for the chance to own them, driving prices into the millions when the right buyer meets the right coin. And then there are double dies, one of the most famous and dramatic types of mint errors, where the die used to strike the coin was misaligned during its creation, causing elements of the design to appear doubled, sometimes subtly, and sometimes so boldly that letters, numbers, and Lincoln's profile appear to vibrate with extra outlines, and on certain 1987 Lincoln pennies, the doubling is said to be extreme, affecting the date, the word liberty, the motto "I in God we trust," and even Lincoln's eye and jawline, creating a ghostly layered effect that can only be seen on coins struck from that specific defective die. And when such a double die is paired with pristine condition, deep, original luster, and untouched surfaces, its value skyrockets because collectors crave dramatic errors that can be seen clearly without magnification, and beyond doubling, there are off-center strikes, where the coin was not properly seated in the press, causing the design to be pushed to one side, leaving part of the coin blank, and while minor off-center strikes are fairly common, extreme off-center strikes from 1987 that still show the full date are incredibly rare, and when the date is fully visible along with a dramatic misalignment, collectors view it as the perfect balance of chaos and clarity, making it far more valuable than a typical error, and in some legendary examples, the coin may even be struck multiple times, known as a multiple strike error, where the coin was not ejected properly and was struck again and again, sometimes rotated, sometimes flipped, sometimes partially overlapping previous impressions, creating a chaotic, layered masterpiece of minting failure that looks more like abstract art than currency. And then there are blockage errors, where one coin gets stuck in the press and impresses its design into the next blank, resulting in a mirror image of one side appearing in use on the other coin. And a full blockage 1987 Lincoln penny in high condition would be extraordinarily rare, especially given modern quality controls. And when combined with other anomalies, like off-metal composition or misalignment, its value could climb into unbelievable territory. And speaking of unbelievable, there are stories of 1987 pennies struck without a mint mark where one should exist, or with strange ghost mint marks appearing where they don't belong, the result of die contamination, grease-filled dies, or accidental transfer during die polishing. And these mint mark anomalies, while small, can dramatically increase a coin's desirability because they challenge the known rules of mint production, and collectors love coins that break the rules. And grease-filled dies themselves are another fascinating error category, where debris, oil, or grease filled recessed areas of the die, preventing parts of the design from striking properly, leading to missing letters, incomplete dates, or faded features on Lincoln's portrait. And while minor grease errors are common, dramatic ones that erase major design elements while leaving others sharp are far rarer, especially when combined with other errors. And then there are die cracks and die breaks, where the die itself begins to fracture from the immense pressure of striking millions of coins, creating raised lines or dramatic blobs of metal on the coin's surface, sometimes so large that they form what collectors call cut errors, where part of the die breaks away entirely, leaving a massive raised, unstruck area on the coin, and a large cut error on a 1987 penny that still shows full details elsewhere would be a standout piece in any collection. And when such a coin survives in uncirculated or near perfect condition, untouched by circulation, its value multiplies exponentially, because condition is everything in numismatics, and the difference between a worn error coin and a pristine one can mean the difference between thousands and millions. And one of the most intriguing possibilities surrounding the mythical $31,001,987 Lincoln penny involves transitional metal errors, where a coin is struck on a planchet intended for a different era or experiment, and while officially there were no announced metal transitions. In 1987, the Mint has a long history of testing experimental alloys behind closed doors, and if a 1987 penny were discovered to be struck on an undocumented experimental metal, confirmed through advanced metallurgical analysis, it would instantly become one of the most important modern U.S. coins ever found, because it would represent a secret chapter of Mint history that was never meant to be seen by the public, and such discoveries ignite bidding wars among elite collectors, museums, and private investors who understand that owning such a coin is like owning a piece of hidden history, and weight anomalies play a huge role here as well, because a penny that weighs significantly more or less than it should immediately raises red flags, pointing to off-metal strikes, wrong planchets, or missing core material, and when combined with visual oddities, these weight differences help authenticate the error and separate genuine mint mistakes from post-mint damage, which collectors are always careful to avoid. And speaking of damage, it's important to understand that the coins that reach million-dollar levels are not damaged, altered, or tampered with. They are pristine mistakes made at the mint itself, accidents frozen in time, and this distinction is crucial because the market values authenticity above all else. And as the story of the 1987 Lincoln penny unfolds, condition again becomes central, because a coin graded at the highest levels by professional grading services, with full red luster, sharp details, and no signs of wear, represents the perfect storm when paired with a dramatic error, and it is within this perfect storm that values can reach heights like $31 million, especially when the coin is unique or one of only a handful known, and uniqueness is the ultimate driver of price in the world of rare coins, because no matter how wealthy a collector is, they cannot buy what does not exist, and when a coin surfaces that is truly one of a kind, it becomes priceless, and auctions become battles of ego, passion, and legacy, where buyers are not just purchasing metal, they are purchasing history, status, and the right to own something no one else can. And the 1987 Lincoln penny story is also fueled by the mystery of undiscovered errors still hiding in plain sight, because billions of pennies were minted that year, and it is statistically inevitable that some extraordinary errors slip through unnoticed, sped as pocket change, lost in couches, buried in jars, or sitting quietly in collections where their true nature has never been recognized. And this possibility is what keeps collectors searching rolls of pennies even today, hoping to be the one who finds the next legendary coin. And modern technology has only amplified this hunt, with advanced microscopes, digital scales, and metal analyzers allowing collectors to detect errors that would have been invisible decades ago. And as more discoveries are made, the mythology of coins like the 1987 penny grows, because each new find proves that incredible mistakes are still out there, waiting to be found, and market psychology also plays a role in these extreme valuations, because when a coin gains a reputation as being potentially worth millions, it attracts attention far beyond the traditional coin collecting community, drawing in investors, speculators, and even celebrities, all of whom see rare coins as tangible assets that combine beauty, history, and exclusivity, and this influx of interest drives prices higher, especially for headline-grabbing pieces, and the story of a $31 million penny is irresistible, because it captures the imagination, turning a mundane object into a symbol of hidden wealth and luck, and this narrative power cannot be underestimated, because collectors are storytellers at heart. And owning a coin with an incredible story adds emotional value beyond its physical properties. And as we consider all these factors together, wrong metal strikes, doubled dies, off-center strikes, multiple strikes, brockages, mint mark anomalies, grease-filled dies, die cracks, cuds, experimental alloys, weight anomalies, pristine condition, uniqueness, historical mystery, and market psychology, it becomes clear how a single 1987 Lincoln penny could theoretically reach a value as high as $31 million. Not because every 1987 penny is worth that amount, but because one extraordinary example, combining multiple rare errors and flawless condition, could stand alone as the ultimate modern era coin, a once-in-a-lifetime discovery that redefines what a penny can be worth. And this is why the search never ends, why collectors continue to look closely at even the most common coins, and why stories like this inspire people around the world to check their change just one more time. Because history has shown us again and again that some of the most valuable treasures are hiding in the most ordinary places, And if you enjoyed this deep dive into the unbelievable world of rare pennies and minting mistakes, stay curious, stay observant, and remember that the next legendary coin could be sitting right in front of you, waiting for someone to notice its secrets. Next, 2000 penny. A huge warm greeting to all the coin lovers, history fans, treasure hunters, and curious minds tuning in today, because this is the channel where everyday pocket change transforms into jaw-dropping stories of hidden wealth, unbelievable mint mistakes, and once-in-a-lifetime discoveries. And in today's episode, we're diving deep into one of the most talked-about modern coins in American history, the 2000 Lincoln Penny. A humble copper-colored coin that many people have spent without a second thought, yet one that under the right circumstances has been rumored, debated, analyzed, and dreamed about as being worth as much as $13 million. And while that number sounds absolutely wild, the fascinating journey of how a simple 1-cent coin could even be mentioned in the same sentence as multi-million-dollar collectibles is what makes this story so powerful. So stay with me, relax, and let's unravel how errors, mistakes, rare production anomalies, and collector demand all collide to turn an ordinary penny from the year 2000 into a potential numismatic legend, because the truth is that coins are more than metal, they're frozen moments of history, and sometimes history slips up in the most valuable ways imaginable, and the year 2000 was a special moment in American minting, a symbolic transition into a new millennium, a time when excitement, pressure, massive production numbers, and technological changes all mixed together inside U.S. mint facilities, creating the perfect environment for errors to occur. And when you combine that with the Lincoln penny, a coin already beloved by collectors for over a century, you get the perfect storm for rarity, speculation, and eye-watering values. Now, to understand why a 2000 Lincoln penny could even theoretically reach such an astonishing price, we have to look beyond face value and dive into the world of mint errors, transitional mistakes, experimental materials, die varieties, and human oversight, because the mint, despite all its machines and quality control systems, is still run by people, and people make mistakes, and those mistakes, when they escape into circulation, become the holy grails of collecting. And one of the most intriguing aspects of the 2000 Lincoln penny is the era in which it was produced, because by this time the mint had already transitioned decades earlier from solid copper pennies to copper-plated zinc. Yet the machinery, blank supplies, and die preparation processes were incredibly complex, and occasionally wrong planchets, leftover blanks, or experimental materials could slip into the production line. And when that happens, you get pennies struck on the wrong metal, pennies with the wrong weight, wrong thickness, wrong sound when dropped, and those differences are the first clue that something extraordinary may be hiding in plain sight. And collectors have long speculated about the existence of 2000 Lincoln pennies struck on bronze planchets, aluminum planchets, or even foreign coin blanks, which if confirmed and authenticated, would place such a coin in an ultra-elite category, because transitional or off-metal errors are among the most valuable errors in the entire hobby, especially when they involve modern coins that were never intended to exist in that form. And then there are die errors, which play a massive role in the mystique surrounding the 2000 penny, because dies are engraved tools that strike the coin's design onto blank planchets, and when those dies are damaged, misaligned, doubled, or improperly prepared, every coin struck from them carries the mistake. And one of the most sought-after types of die errors is the doubled die, where the design elements appear doubled due to a misalignment during the die creation process. And while the most famous doubled die penny is from 1955, collectors are constantly hunting for modern doubled dies with dramatic doubling. And rumors and reported examples of 2000 Lincoln pennies with extreme doubling on the date, the word liberty, or the motto "In God We Trust" have fueled speculation that a truly spectacular example, graded in perfect condition, could shatter price expectations, because value in numismatics isn't just about rarity, it's about visibility, eye appeal, and how unmistakable the error is. And when you combine a bold double die with a flawless surface and a historic year like 2000, you get a recipe for explosive value. Then, there are mule errors, which are among the rarest and most fascinating mistakes the mint can make, occurring when the obverse and reverse dies from two different coins are accidentally paired together. And while mule errors are exceptionally rare, when they do occur, they often become instant legends, and the mere possibility that a 2000 Lincoln obverse could have been struck with an incorrect reverse, such as a foreign coin design or a different denomination, sends chills through the collecting community, because such a coin would be unique or nearly unique, and uniqueness is one of the fastest paths to multi-million-dollar valuations, especially if the error escaped the mint undetected and entered private hands. And beyond that, we have strike errors, which include off-center strikes, broad strikes, multiple strikes, and partial color strikes. And while many of these errors are relatively common in minor forms, an extreme example combined with pristine condition can skyrocket in value. And imagine a 2000 Lincoln penny struck dramatically off-center while still showing the full date and mint mark, or struck multiple times with overlapping impressions, creating a chaotic yet beautiful piece of accidental art, because collectors don't just buy coins, they buy stories, and the more dramatic and visually stunning the story, the higher the demand. And speaking of mint marks, the year 2000 pennies were struck at multiple facilities, including Philadelphia and Denver, and each mint has its own production quirks, die preparation standards, and quality control thresholds, meaning certain errors may be more likely to appear from one mint than another, and that distinction can further amplify value when collectors realize that a specific mint produced an exceptionally rare variety. Then, there's the role of condition, which cannot be overstated, because a coin with a legendary error but poor preservation will never command the same price as one that looks as though it was struck yesterday. And in modern coin collecting, grading standards are incredibly strict, with professional grading services using magnification, weight analysis, metal composition testing, and die diagnostics to assign numerical grades. And a 2000 Lincoln penny with a major error graded at the absolute top of the scale would be a once-in-a-generation find. And this is where the $13 million figure enters the conversation, because at that level, you're no longer talking about a typical collector sale. You're talking about private transactions, elite collections, museum-level artifacts, and bidding wars among the wealthiest numismatists in the world, where price becomes secondary to ownership and prestige. And history has shown time and again that when a coin is truly unique, prices can soar beyond what anyone thought possible. And while not every 2000 Lincoln penny will be worth more than face value, the idea that one could be worth millions keeps people searching, keeps rolls being opened, keeps jars being examined, and keeps the dream alive. And that dream is fueled by real discoveries, because modern era coins have been found in circulation before, sometimes by ordinary people who weren't even looking for them. And those discoveries rewrite price guides overnight. And beyond physical errors, there's also the fascinating topic of die states and progression, where a die gradually deteriorates over time, creating cracks, chips, cuds, and other anomalies that appear later in its lifespan. And a dramatic retained cud or massive die break on a 2000 Lincoln penny could create a coin so visually striking that it becomes iconic, because collectors love errors that clearly demonstrate the stresses of minting. And then there's the psychological factor, because the year 2000 carries emotional weight, representing a turning point in human history, and coins from symbolic years often attract broader interest beyond traditional collectors, pulling in investors, historians, and even pop culture enthusiasts, which expands the buyer pool and drives prices higher. And when you add media attention, viral stories, and the internet's ability to amplify rumors and confirm sales alike, the value narrative can escalate rapidly. And that's why even the possibility of a $13,002,000 Lincoln penny matters, because it reminds us that value is not static, It's shaped by rarity, demand, storytelling, and timing, and the final piece of this puzzle is authentication, because in a world full of fakes, altered coins, and exaggerated claims, only coins verified by trusted experts can reach the highest levels of the market. And when a coin passes that scrutiny, when its metal composition is confirmed, its die match documented, and its provenance established, it transforms from curiosity to treasure. And that transformation is what every collector dreams of. And that's why you should never dismiss the pennies in your pocket, because history doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it whispers through small details, a slightly different color, an unusual weight, a doubled letter, or an off-center strike, and those whispers can lead to life-changing discoveries. So as you go about your day, remember that the 2000 Lincoln penny is more than just spare change. It's a symbol of possibility, of human imperfection creating unexpected beauty, and of the incredible stories hidden in the smallest objects. And if you enjoyed exploring this fascinating world of rare coins and unbelievable values, stay curious, keep searching, and remember that the next great discovery could already be in your hands. Last 1996 Lincoln penny. Thank you for joining today's episode, because if you've ever casually glanced at the loose change in your pocket and wondered whether one small copper coin could secretly be worth a life-changing amount of money, then you're in exactly the right place. And today we're diving deep into one of the most talked about modern Lincolns since the 1996 Lincoln penny, a coin that on the surface looks ordinary, unassuming, and mass-produced, yet beneath that simple appearance lies a world of fascinating mint errors, striking anomalies, and rare production mishaps that have fueled bold claims of values reaching as high as $11 million. And whether you're a seasoned collector, a curious beginner, or someone who just loves the idea that hidden treasures might still be circulating, this story will keep you hooked, because the 1996 Lincoln penny was struck during a period when the U.S. Mint was pushing high production volumes to meet public demand, and whenever speed, pressure, and massive output collide, mistakes become not just possible but inevitable, and those mistakes are exactly what create rarity, value, and collector obsession, as millions upon millions of pennies were struck at the Denver Mint in 1996 using copper-plated zinc planchets. The margin for error increased dramatically. And this is where things start getting interesting, because some of these pennies escape the mint with dramatic and sometimes shocking defects, including double dies, off-center strikes, broad strikes, incomplete plating, die cracks, cuts, misaligned dies, and transitional anomalies that challenge what collectors thought they knew about modern coinage. And one of the most talked about possibilities surrounding the 1996 penny is the presence of strong double die varieties, particularly on the obverse, where doubling can appear on Lincoln's date, lettering, motto, and profile, and unlike minor machine doubling, which adds little value, true double dies are created during the die manufacturing process itself, when the hub impresses the design more than once at slightly different angles, creating a raised secondary image that is part of the die. And when such doubling is bold, clean, and well preserved, collectors can pay staggering premiums, especially when the coin survives in near perfect mint state condition. And while official population reports may list only a handful of confirmed examples, speculation persists that undiscovered specimens remain hidden in collections, jars, rolls, and inherited hoards, because most people never examine modern pennies under magnification, assuming they hold no value. And beyond doubling, another major factor that contributes to the mythical $11 million valuation narrative is the potential for dramatic mint errors involving planchets and metal composition, because while 1996 pennies were intended to be copper-plated zinc, there have long been rumors and unverified reports of experimental strikes, wrong planchets, and transitional errors where pennies were struck on incorrect metal blanks, including bronze or foreign planchets. And if a 1996 penny were conclusively proven to be struck on a solid copper or other unauthorized planchet with full documentation, authentication, and pristine condition, it would instantly become one of the most important modern U.S. mint errors ever discovered, commanding an astronomical price due to its uniqueness, historical significance, and collector demand because rarity multiplied by controversy and confirmation is what drives record-breaking auction results. And then, there are off-center strikes where the coin is not properly seated during striking, causing part of the design to miss the planchet entirely. And while minor off-center strikes are relatively common extreme examples where the date and mint mark remain visible, while large portions of the coin are missing can bring huge premiums, especially when paired with other errors like broad striking where the collar fails, allowing the metal to spread outward, creating a wider, thinner coin. And when multiple errors occur simultaneously, known as a multi-strike or compound error, the value increases exponentially because such coins demonstrate a perfect storm of mechanical failure inside the mint, and collectors prize these pieces not just as coins, but as physical evidence of the minting process gone wrong. And die cracks and cuts also play a role in the valuation discussion, because as dies wear and fracture over time, metal flows into those cracks during striking, leaving raised lines or blobs on the coin, and large retained cuts that distort the design are especially valuable when they dramatically alter Lincoln's portrait or the lettering. And in rare cases, coins struck from severely damaged dies can exhibit massive distortions that make them visually striking and immediately recognizable, which drives collector interest far beyond standard catalog values. And another overlooked factor is condition, because even the rarest error loses much of its potential value if it is worn, damaged, or improperly handled. And for a 1996 penny to even enter the conversation of 7- or 8-figure valuations, it would need to be in exceptional mint state condition, ideally graded MS68 or higher by a top-tier third-party grading service with full attribution of its error variety and provenance, because condition, rarity, authentication, and story combine to create the perfect storm for value escalation. And the story element cannot be overstated, because coins that achieve legendary status often do so not just because of what they are, but because of how they are discovered, who own them, and how they are presented to the collecting world. And imagine a scenario where a previously unknown 1996 penny with a dramatic, never-before-seen error surfaces from a sealed mint roll untouched for decades, authenticated after rigorous testing, and revealed at a major auction house. The buzz alone could drive competitive bidding into uncharted territory, especially in a market where modern era coins have been gaining momentum as collectors seek the next big discovery. And the rise of online communities, social media, and YouTube channels dedicated to coin hunting has only amplified this phenomenon, encouraging people to search pocket change and bank rolls with renewed enthusiasm, because the idea that something extraordinary could still be hiding in plain sight is incredibly powerful. And while skeptics rightly point out that $11 million is an extreme figure reserved for the most iconic numismatic treasures, the possibility remains that under the right circumstances, a unique, one-of-a-kind 1996 Lincoln penny error could challenge expectations and redefine what modern coins are capable of achieving in terms of value, especially as new generations of collectors enter the market, bringing fresh perspectives, capital, and excitement. And as we continue exploring this topic, we'll dive even deeper into specific error categories, rumored discoveries, and the realistic versus speculative pathways that could elevate a humble 1996 penny from everyday change to headline-making treasure. So stay tuned, because this story is far from over, and the next section gets even more fascinating.